Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Pyramid Sports Network. We have another guest this week in our new series that we're going to have, bringing on as many current and former professional athletes as we can. And today we are blessed with the opportunity to bring on Casey Delgado, former pitcher in the Mets system, longtime professional baseball player, and a now friend of the program. So, Casey, welcome on.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
So just a little bit about Casey for those of you who don't know him. He was born in Miami, Florida. Um, about 35 years old, 36 years old now you are?
35. Yep.
35 years old. Pitched in at Miami Palmetto High School. Um, Great player there, a couple times All State, and then eventually wound up at Columbia State Community College, Austin Peay a few years later. But yeah, I really want to start back um, with your kind of your high school experience and Miami just being such a hot spot for high school baseball and collegiate baseball as well. And obviously they have the Miami Marlins and a couple spring training complexes down there. But I just wanted to hear a little bit more about some of the experiences you had playing in such a competitive environment down in Miami in high school and some of the takeaways that you thought helped you get to, advancing your career in the higher levels of baseball.
Yeah. That's going way back now.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I graduated in 2009 from Palmetto, and I think the competition down there. You play 3 seasons a year for the most part, right? Like there's not many other places in the world where you're able to play full seasons throughout the year.
Mhm.
So like everybody is good. I played against some really good players like Manny Machado for one.
Mhm.
Um, had the opportunity to play with like on a travel team with a couple future big leaguers at the time, Andrew Suarez, Stephen Barron, um, Manny Machado was another one,
Mhm.
and like you just see that type of competition all the time. Whether you're 6 years old playing rec ball all the way like through middle school, high school, summer ball. So it was definitely competitive, and like the energy is always there in Miami with all
Mhm.
the Latin culture and all that stuff. So um, I really truly enjoyed my high school career down there. Um, it was pretty decent, but yeah, I mean I really enjoyed it. That was probably going back is probably one of my favorite periods of times, throughout my career.
Mhm. And so your senior year, you end up um, committing to Columbia State, and that really was kind of the launch pad for your career into Division One baseball and continuing to professional baseball. And what were some of the other opportunities that you had coming out of high school? Was it mainly Columbia State, or was there other interest in the state of Florida?
So that's actually a funny story. I've just told this story at lunch today about somebody trying to start a business and
Mm.
um, kind of not taking no for an answer. Um, so when I was, I guess, a sophomore, junior around there, my pitching coach asked me where I wanted to go to college. And at the time, I was like, shooting for the stars. I was like Texas or
Mm.
Cal State Fullerton. Those were my I guess reach schools. And then everything in state, I thought I had a good chance to go to one of the bigger schools in Florida, like University of Miami, Florida, Florida State, any of those schools. And as I was being looked at throughout my junior year and into my senior year, a lot of those bigger schools kept telling me like, you're undersized, you don't throw that hard. I was probably throwing like, I don't know, 84 to 86, maybe
Mm.
touching 87 at the time. But like I had a really good curveball, good changeup, like I could pitch, right? And so all those bigger schools kept telling me no, and I was like, are you guys watching the same thing I'm
Yeah.
watching? Like I'm doing pretty well. Um, so whatever. They were just like maybe go the JUCO route, and we can sign you after that. So Miami-Dade Community College is a pretty popular baseball school down there. They're always in the World Series and the conference tournaments and everything. And I went there for a visit, and I liked it. I thought it was cool. And the coach at the time was like, "So what we're going to do is we're going to offer you a walk-on spot." And I was like, "A walk-on spot? Like there's no money you can give me or anything." And to me that was like, I don't know, like a little bit insulting at the time, because I was like, I've pitched well. I feel like I deserve something. So I was like, okay, I'll keep that in the back pocket,
Mm.
and keep looking. And I played summer ball. I played for the Florida Legends. That's the team I played with all those future big leaguers on, and the team was really really good. Um, and the coach of that team had some kind of connection to Mike Korn, who was the head coach at Columbia State.
Mm.
And at that time, that was right after my senior year. I was like, I don't even know, if I'm going to be able to play in college. And it just seemed so weird to me. So anyway, they connected, and I went up there for a visit, looked around the campus, and I was like, this is way different than Miami. Columbia, Tennessee is a pretty
Mm.
small town. So I sat down with the coach after that, and he was like, all right, we're gonna give you like whatever it was, 75% or something. And I was like, that felt so good to me to feel wanted.
Mm.
Um, so I ended up, making that decision very shortly after that, and the rest is kind of history. But it was just a scenario where it's like, I'm gonna find a way to get this done, and like prove to myself and all the coaches that told me no, you're not really a good fit,
Mm.
that that I can continue playing this game.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it definitely, looking at just some of your stats from when you were there, your sophomore year, pitched to a 7-3 record with a 2.26, second team All Tennessee Junior in community college selection, freshman year 4-3 with a 3.3 ERA. Um, it kind of carried over the success you had in college, or in excuse me, in high school. And kind of the one of the things that I was wondering is, what were some of the biggest adjustments that you had to make in terms of pitchability, and then also off of that, kind of what were some of the biggest things that you took away for the rest of your career that you learned at Columbia State?
So I think for starters, in high school, I could kind of throw curveballs whenever I wanted, for strikes, and either get weak contact or swing and miss a lot of the time, and like significant amount of chases on the curveball. And I remember there was one fall game, I couldn't tell you who we were playing, like Wabash Valley or
Mm.
somebody, and I threw a curveball like I used to do in high school, and I threw it right down the middle, and he hit it over the center field fence, and I was like, "Oh, we're in a different world now."
Yeah.
So you gotta spot up and keep them off balance and everything. So um, that was like the major thing I learned right away, is like you have to learn how to pitch a little bit. Um, so my coach at Columbia was pretty strict. Like, if you miss class, you would run. If we got in trouble for having parties at apartments, and we'd run at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
And he was very strict about like off field stuff. And then in our practices, he'd put pressure on us with like bunt plays, or um, a hit and run, or these different things that we needed to do in practice. And if we didn't do it, we had like a triangle where you go from like home plate to right field foul pole, across to left field foul pole, and back to home. And it was like the pressure that he put on us in practices helped us in the games
Mm.
by like the games were easy then, because we didn't want to run 20 triangles in a
Right.
practice. So it put the pressure on us then, so then the games were a breeze. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, he taught me a lot.
Mm.
There's some things that I learned at Columbia that I took on throughout the rest of my career. Just little things like paying attention to detail. Every throw matters. We would play catch either on the field or we had this track with like a big grass area, and every time we'd overthrow our partner, we had to run around the track, and it got to the point where like everything you did mattered.
Mm.
So I really took that and like bought into that thought process, and I think that's why I was able to be successful and play as long as I
Mm.
have.
Yeah, and I think kind of the point that stuck out to me the most was making practice harder than the game, because I know in my experience in over the past, I played 5 years in college. The the constant theme of our hitting coach at Rhodes where I went was, we're always going to make cage work more difficult. We're going to make the machine nastier than any pitch you're going to see this weekend, because then if you see, a sharp breaking ball, it's not going to be as sharp as the one you just saw in the cage, and that's going to make you feel more comfortable in the box, or in that example, like you're saying, it's going to make you feel more comfortable on the mound and knowing where to be. Um, and I think that's one of the most popular ways to coach, not in like it being like a cool way, but I think it just prepares players in a different way, and like you were saying, kind of creates that mental toughness. I think that was
For
one
sure.
thing that, yeah. um and I was also wondering, in terms of, JUCO ball and college baseball and all levels have been changing over the past, 10, 15 years. I was wondering if you've seen the landscape of junior college baseball change since you've been there?
I would say baseball as a whole has changed. It's hard to say specifically the JUCO level, but I think just as a whole, like throwing hard matters, hitting the ball hard matters. Um, strikeouts as a hitter don't matter as much if you can hit
Mm,
home runs. Like I think those things have impacted the game. Being stronger, more physical. I always worked out hard, but um, I think it's gotten to the point where it's like those are intangibles. Like you have to have those
mm,
things that make you better than the next person, stronger, faster, throw harder. I mean, you see all the time high school kids throwing upper 90s, 100 miles an hour. Like that's ridiculous.
yeah, no, I know, this was something I was thinking about too. Is what are your thoughts on kind of the recent development, kind of off of that, the Cressies and the Treads and their emphasis on velo and shorter off seasons and being on the mound more, and I feel like it's kind of led to this Tommy John epidemic and these a lot of these elbow surgeries, and I don't know if you've kind of felt the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big believer in like throwing a lot, throwing hard. Like the thing that I always thought of was like in order to throw hard, you have to throw hard,
Mm,
right? Like more often. So if your arm feels good, you throw hard. That may even been a Columbia State thing. I can't remember
mm,
where I learned that initially, but David Price used to always say it, and um, I think I think the fact that there's more data and like research on teaching somebody how to throw hard, like back in the day, like you either threw hard or you didn't, and
mm,
you could work out all you want and do whatever, but like there's only so many ways and so much so much you can gain. So I think that like they're taking people that without all this data and exercises and different weighted balls and stuff like that, like those people are able to throw harder, easier,
mm,
and I think it plays a role. Like everything, spin rate, velocity, like those play a huge role. But I think the thing that a lot of people don't pay attention to is like all that stuff is great, but if you're not doing like the arm care, the running, like
mm,
taking care of your body, like that's how the injuries happen. I mean, mechanics, guys are. I mean, you look at like top velocity is
mm,
one where like this guy is, nothing against him, he's done well, but like he's putting people in these positions, like this is truly just to throw as hard as you possibly can, and you can't really pitch like that. It's like you're high risk or high reward for that, that risk, and um I think that's probably the reason for the arm injuries. Like I
Yeah.
threw a ton, back in the day,
Mm.
and I really didn't get injured until I started to like try to throw as hard as I possibly can every pitch, and I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I've been I don't know if you've been keeping up with the World Baseball Classic at all, but I was watching some I think it was a game Brazil was playing a few days ago, and the the guys that are rolling out there, it's kind of off that point of everybody wants to throw hard, but they don't really
Mhm.
necessarily care where it's going. Um, and they're all focused on arm speed and making their breaking ball as tight as it possibly can be and move as much as it can. But then you see guys that throw 97 but can't land a breaking ball for a strike or can't consistently throw their fastball for a strike. And then it just made me wonder, there have to be guys out there that are, working 90 to 92, maybe touching a 93, but they can locate and they can command all parts of the plate. And it kind of makes me think back to, even 10 years ago, I think the average fastball velocity of a starter was probably 92 or 93, and now it's about 95. And it's just
Yep.
interesting because I know that some of the toughest at bats I've had in my career were not against guys that were throwing that hard. It was the guys that you knew could land 3+ pitches for a strike and guys that really knew the psychological side of being a hitter and knowing when a hitter is going to be trying to look to, or when a hitter's trying to jump on a fastball, or when they're going to get into these certain tendencies. And I think that gets a little bit lost in the mix. Um, and I hope over the next few years that there's kind of this shift to tunneling that, let's throw as hard as we can, because there's no doubt 97 plays more than 91. But
Sure.
um, it's it's just a matter of being able to be a pitcher. And I think that we have a lot of throwers as opposed to pitchers. And like you're saying, they're the programs that are really just trying to make sure that you can move your body in a certain way so that you can maximize how hard you can throw a baseball, but then you miss out the pitching aspect.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be guys like, Paul Skeens, Jacob DeGrom, uh, Scooble. Like, you go down the list of all the guys that like are Cy Young Award caliber pitchers, and they can do both, right? Like they
Mm,
can throw hard, they can spot up, they can, spin it. And not everybody can do that. So I think like the goal should be, work with what you have
mm,
and like teach movement, teach, location. Because I've given lessons to kids that are like 9 years old. And it's like, what's my velo? I'm like, dude, you just missed the
yeah.
target completely.
Right.
Wait, why does it matter? Um, so those are the guys that separate themselves, right? Like the
Mm,
the guys that kind of figure it out, can throw hard and spot up. Uh, those are the guys that make it, and the guys can do both, spin the ball and
mm,
throw the ball where they want. Yeah. You mentioned you hope that the game goes back to that, being able to pitch, and I I'm afraid that it doesn't, because I just don't know how that ever stops, right? Like, you look at this, there's always going to be a shiny new toy,
mm,
right? And, it's always the next guy. There's so many players that can play baseball very well. So somebody's always going to throw harder. Somebody's always going to be able to spin a curveball or slider better, or like this, this phase of like the splitter, like this, in the World Series last year, guys were throwing splitters, and that was like the big pitch that
mm.
really had success. I don't know how the game ever goes back to guys just being able to pitch, because there's always like that new shiny toy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
So it's
it's
tough.
it's kind of in that same breath. It's like when you hear of um, one of those middle of the bullpen guys that's going to come up from AAA. It's how hard does he throw? It's not, can he get guys out? If the casual fan is watching and they see a guy they've never heard of that's sitting 92, 93, but gets guys out, it's not going to be as fun for them to watch than it is to see the guy that's working
Yeah,
98,
that
99. It's
it's the same thing with hitters, right? Like
mm,
you see guys like Tatis the other day in the World Baseball Classic hits a home run, pimps it, looks at his dugout, and it's like that's like the entertainment factor.
mm,
So like a guy like Luis Ariz, that I don't even know how many he probably doesn't hit very many home runs, but
yeah.
like he's a contact hitter, and that's like not as exciting for fans. So I mean that part's tough, right? Like I don't know. I don't know the answer, but somebody's got to figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
it's
Um,
it's tough.
but yeah, so I think so. Moving on, kind of from your junior college days, you go to Austin Peay in Clarksville, Tennessee, and have a great career there as well. And I was also wondering, going back, what were some of your other schools that were interested in you coming out of Columbia?
At Columbia, let's see, mostly around that area, Belmont, Tennessee Tech. I think those are the two main ones.
Mm,
You know, I talked to a couple other schools, but those are the two that I've had a like real chance to go to.
okay.
Um, and the pitching coach at Austin Peay was a pretty good recruiter, and they've had good pitchers come out of there. So I think that's what kind of made my decision for me.
Yeah, and I mean, you go on, you have a great career, you end up in your junior year, kind of lighten it up a little bit, go 9-4. And was it your junior year or your senior year when you threw the complete game in the NCAA tournament?
So yeah, that was my junior year. It was the Oregon Regional. That whole regional was pretty cool. We opened up against Oregon. We're up by we're up by one going into the last inning. Like we're the 4 seed going to that regional.
Mm,
We're not supposed to win that game, in their home field, and so we're going into the bottom of the ninth. We end up, if you look it up, there's a picture of our closer touching Tyler Rogers, who's in the
mm,
big leagues right now. He's touching the guy's back. It was like a play at a plate, and umpire calls him safe. The crowd goes absolutely nuts. It was so loud. Still probably one of the loudest stadiums I've ever been in.
mm.
So that tied the game. Next batter hits a ground ball at third base. We booted around a little bit and they score. They win the game. So like, that was the first game. The next game we played Indiana State and Sean Mania, if
Hmm.
you recognize the name. He pitched against us. We won 1-0. And then, you know, the way that the pitching lined up, I had Cal State Fullerton. Like when I was a little kid playing in the backyard, like I wanted to be Cal State Fullerton. Like, all
Hmm.
right, I'm going to be Cal State Fullerton. Like my brothers are like UNC Texas.
Yeah.
Like so, like it was like a childhood dream to pitch in that game, and I don't know if my adrenaline has ever been higher in a game before, but like it was pretty cool. That team had some pretty big names in there too. Michael Arinzen played
Hmm.
center field. It was our closer. JD Davis, I think he pitched that game, maybe. Um, Matt Chapman.
Okay.
That team was
So yeah,
was
it's not a
pretty
bad
fun.
not a bad
So,
lineup. Yeah.
but yeah, adrenaline was so high in that game. After that game, we had a doubleheader because we had to play Oregon again, and like I basically blacked out. I'm in the dugout, like sweating and like almost throwing up, and it was like coming down from that rush was
Yeah.
probably one of the cooler moments in my career for sure.
Yeah, so you end up going complete game, 3 hits, 3 walks, kind of scattered the 3 hits, striking out four, and I mean, I can only imagine the kind of the groove, or people, a lot of people are saying now like the flow state, getting in flow state. I'm sure that was kind of that feeling of, especially against a lineup that good, just knowing that you had your best stuff that day, and in front of that crowd, or in that stadium, it was probably a pretty cool experience. But um,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
it was fun. It was fun.
yeah, and then I have another note about Austin P. So I was told to ask about the laser show. That so I just didn't know if you had any comments about the laser show and
So
your connections. Yeah.
yeah, so Rolando, Gautier, me, and then PJ Torres, we all played for the same summer team back in high school. Like different times, but same team. We all kind of had that like Latin heritage, I guess
Mm,
you could say. And then we had one more roommate, guy from Tennessee, just a white boy. Um, and we thought we were cool, in college, and we bought this like laser, projector, so shooting lasers all over the room. We had a couple parties at our house, so we called our parties the laser show.
There you go. No, I had to get that one in. Shout out to Roe, giving me some of the insider information. And so we got about 9 minutes left. So I really want to get into your professional career. And so you start your career in indie ball. You have a great 2014 season with the Traverse City Beach Bums. Lead the league in strikeouts, have 118 strikeouts and 116 innings pitched, go 7-6 with a 3.25, and then that leads you um, into your career in pro ball with the Mets. So I kind of wanted to hear about that journey with our time we have left.
Yeah, so real quick, I'll touch on just kind of the like getting the call. So 2024 had that good year, made the All-Star team and everything. It was good. Went back there in 25. I made two starts. I don't know if I gave up a run. I'd have to go back and look, but pitched well those two games, and I'm out throwing before the game, just like a normal day, and my manager comes out, Dan Roan. He played like 11 years in the big leagues. So he's walking out and he's holding my phone, and I'm like, oh man, I probably left my phone on or something in the locker room. He's
Mm.
coming out to yell at me, and he was like, "Hey, is this your phone?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You might want to keep it on you. The Mets are about to call you. They're going to buy your contract." And it was like, a dream come true. Like, I never got drafted, but like to
Mm.
me, that was like as special as a draft could be. Um, so ended up signing with them. I left that night, drove. I probably drove, a couple hours that night. Stayed in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Mm.
I was way up in Traverse City. Then the next day, drove all the way down to Savannah, Georgia. Got there at like midnight. Had a physical at 9 a.m. in the morning. Ended up piggybacking a starter that night against the Yankees
Mm.
Charlotte team, and or Charleston, sorry, and ended up getting a walk off. We ended up getting a walk off home run, and I got the win in the first game. It was like just a crazy story,
So yeah, it's like
string
storybook
of
stuff.
events. Yeah, pretty cool.
But so you pitch with you're in the Mets system, and obviously they're a pretty storied franchise. And I was just wondering, what were some of the people you played with or the coaches that you met along the way while you're in pro ball that really had a lasting impact on you in your career, as a person, or just some other just really neat baseball stories that you had along the way?
There's plenty of stories. As far as like coaches go, um, there's a handful of coaches that you pick up things from, and um, like one of them was like a catching coordinator, and he was always talking about like being quick to the plate and holding runners, and I really took pride in managing the running game. And then I had a coach that taught me a sinker, and I started working on that. But I think the best coaches I had throughout my minor league and like even professional career were other players.
Mm.
I learned a slider from Chris Flexen, who's had a decent career here in the big leagues. Um, I had a good roommate, Corey Oswald, who also played in the big leagues for a little bit, and like just bouncing things off them, thought process, pitch scripts, work ethic, stuff like that. Like, the other players are your best coaches as you go through the minor league, because it's your career. The coaches kind of treat you like professionals. They're not, holding your hand, and you know, you develop a little bit with them, but I think your peers are what really teach you in
Okay.
in pro ball.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, like you're saying, it's a lot of being a professional. What I've heard from just talking to some other people that I've come across who've played professionally in any aspect. It's kind of that transition of, you're a professional now. This is your career, this is your livelihood. Um, and I think it kind of adds an extra element to just playing the game that, you've grown up playing your whole life.
Yep.
So then I guess just while we wrap up, if are there, any guys you played against along the way, um, or or any really crazy stories that you have. But I think I'm mainly wondering just kind of about, who are some of the bigger names that you've pitched against, and kind of the track record you had against those guys.
Um, I think Manny Machado is probably the biggest name. But I mean, you go down the list. Like, I played with Pete Alonso, played against Yon Moncada, Andrew Benintendi, Rafael Devers. Like, there's a long list of guys that I played with. That, they're kind of cool. Um, One of the coolest things is when big leaguers come back and rehab, and they're working on things, but like being able to pick Seth Lugo's brain on like
Mm,
his curveball, because like I've always had a pretty good curveball, but like talking to him about his, and he's really big on spin rate. He spins the ball probably better than most other people in the big leagues. So being able to sit and just talk to him for a whole game, 3 hour game
mm.
was pretty cool. Um, let's see. Those are probably the biggest names um,
Yeah, I mean
that
Seth
I've played
Lugo,
with or
Seth
pitched
Lugo, not
against.
a bad guy to learn a curveball from.
Yeah,
Not a
yeah,
bad guy to learn a breaking ball from. I think, um, like you were saying about his spin rate, that's a guy that I feel like some people you can't really tell on TV that they're throwing something that's really spinny or they're throwing a fastball that's riding a little bit. But I felt like every time Seth Lugo pitched, whether it be kind of that arm action that or the thing he did with his glove when he would go to stride out, it always felt like every curveball he threw was just a banger, and every fastball is kind of staying true and staying up at the top of the zone. Um,
yep,
and I mean, it makes sense. He's had a pretty successful career doing it. But yeah, I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for this episode. We're about out of time. So Casey, again, I really appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on.
yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Quinn. It was cool, kind of reliving the glory days. I appreciate you having me on, and good luck in your career with this.
yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and for all you listening, I will have this out later today or early tomorrow whenever you see it, and I will be back next week with some more content. So I appreciate it.